Our top story this half hour, Florida setting a new single-day COVID-19 death record. The state reporting another 132 deaths yesterday. That brings the total to a little more than 4,400, 291,000 overall cases. However, a Fox 35 investigation now bringing some of those Florida numbers into question.
We discovered dozens of labs on the state's COVID-19 report had a 100% positivity rate. The Department of Health confirmed that some of these labs have not been reporting their negative test results to the state. One report showed Orlando Health had a 98% positivity rate, even though it tells Fox 35 the actual rate was only 9.4%. In fact, Orlando Health tells us they did give the state the correct number, and they don't know how the state ended up putting the wrong number in their data. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle say they are disturbed by these findings.
What you're seeing is a lot of sloppy numbers just being jammed out to the public.
It needs to be objective. It needs to be valid and reliable. The public must have access to this data so they can make informed decisions.
We also received statements from Senator Rick Scott and Congressman Darren Soto, both of them saying it is critical that this information is accurate, not only to maintain public confidence, but more importantly, to keep Floridians safe and healthy.
So we've got tipped off that something didn't look quite right on the state's daily COVID case report. This is a report that we all look to, when looking at these numbers and trying to figure out what the real situation is across the state of Florida. When I started digging into the numbers and looking at the report, there's a breakdown of every single lab and hospital that's conducting COVID-19 testing. I noticed that there were dozens of labs reporting a 100% positivity rate, which at that point I was like, okay, how is it possible that 100% of people going to get tested at these sites are testing positive? And I looked at some of the negative columns where they are required by the state to report the negative results, some of them completely blank. So that means, again, nobody was testing negative, everyone was testing positive.
All right, so then you called some of the ones that had super high positivity rates, like the VA, you called Orlando Health. What did they say?
Right, because that was my next question is, okay, I need to confirm this. I need to go to these labs and find out. I had already reached out to the state, hadn't heard back yet. So I went to the Orlando Health. I also talked to the VA, as you mentioned. Both confirmed that there were errors on the numbers being reflected for their facilities. And I actually, an update to that, Advent Health, their Centric Care locations also showing some astronomical numbers. They also confirmed that those are not accurate numbers.
So here's what I find strange, Robert. So you call the Florida Department of Health, right? And they tell you, look, some of these smaller private labs are not doing this correctly, are not providing the correct numbers. Here's where it doesn't make sense. I wouldn't call Centricare, I wouldn't call Orlando Health, I wouldn't call the VA a small private lab, right? They're saying we gave the state the right numbers, but somehow the wrong number is ending up on the data. How is that happening?
Yeah, that's still confusing to me. And, as you mentioned, the state sending us that statement saying, kind of putting the blame on these smaller labs. And granted, many of these labs with 100% positivity, they are smaller. We're talking a few hundred people tested, if that. These larger facilities, again, I wouldn't consider them private labs. Here's the thing, though. So these larger health systems like Orlando Health, they have, for instance, Orlando Health has 11 testing facilities, 11 different labs. Maybe some of them could be considered smaller private, but again, they all feed into the system of the greater system of Orlando Health. So perhaps there's a confusion there. Some of their sub-labs there's a glitch there in the reporting, but again, the state kind of putting the blame on the labs, but some of our major systems, for instance, I reached out to a hospital that was showing 100% positivity out in the Fort Myers area, Amy, Lee Memorial Hospital, and they had 100% positivity reporting. Well, they said that, it's their understanding that all of their negative numbers have been reported. In fact, when I brought it to their attention, it was the first time they were hearing this, that they were only reporting positive results. So they were looking into it. They came back to tell me that they believe the issue is on the state side, not on their side. So there's some kind of glitch in the data gathering system on the state side. that's a big question that we're going to be asking today.
Yeah, there's so much more to dig into on this. It really is truly incredible. And Robert Guadarrama, you are doing a great job. Thank you so much. And, Robert, just before we let everybody go, I want to make sure people understand why this is important, right? Because I think some people are like, what difference does it make? And we're seeing a lot of that from our reportings. People saying, well,
Sure.
What difference does it really make? But it does, because what happens is we look at this positivity rate as going up or down is how we base decisions like going back to school and other big things in our state.
It's determining everything right now. We hear Governor DeSantis daily referencing these numbers. And so, yes, like I said, these are smaller labs, just a few hundred tests each. So this could or could not skew the positivity rate across the state. But to me, it's not about that. We should be able to trust these numbers. We should be able to trust the state and these labs to be reporting accurate numbers, because like you mentioned, we are making our decisions based on these numbers. So it's really about transparency and accuracy on an official state report. We should be able to trust the numbers, and that's what we're finding has not been the case.
Miami takes another step back in its reopening process. Starting tomorrow, indoor dining at restaurants will be closed. So will banquet halls and short-term vacation rentals. Gyms will be allowed to stay open as long as everyone inside wears a face mask.
That decision coming as Florida reaches the highest rate of positive tests ever. More than 7,300 new cases of coronavirus reported Monday. Now that's down from the record highs we saw over the holiday weekend, but higher than yesterday. The rate of positive tests is now at 16.2%, and that is a record.